Hi, everybody. My name is Kelly Matczak. I am the owner of Eagle Point East, and I'm a life coach. And my past life was a chief communications officer for 13 years, and I was also director of a university press for 5. And I want to introduce my lovely friend, Susan Stone.
Hi, Kelly. Thanks for inviting me here today. This is going to be fun. I'm excited. My name is Susan Stone, and I'm the founder of S2 Evolution. In my past life, I ran charities. I went back to school and got certified in hypnotherapy, emotional intelligence instructor, and now I am a Psych facilitator. So that's
Wonderful.
me.
Wonderful. Well, this kind of started because I love talking to Susan. I met her at Starbucks because I wanted to catch up with her and see what's going on because I always go away feeling so wonderful when I have these conversations with her. And they're interesting conversations and it's good content. And I'm like, you know what, Susan, this is so fun. We should record this. So I wanted to kind of have some insight for other people of what we go through and what we know about, and maybe someone will learn something from it.
Great. I love that idea. So we wanted to kick it off with one of the things that most people struggle with, which is anxiety, fear, and stress.
Very common.
And we were given our emotions for a reason,
Hmm.
and they're useful as long as we respond to them instead of react. So when
Yeah.
we're reacting in fear or reacting to stress, we usually don't make great decisions.
Yes, I think everyone can vouch for that. We've all
R-
experienced that.
Right, because what happens is 1,400 chemicals dump into our brain when we get triggered,
Mhm.
and it doesn't have to be something that's happening right in front of us. It could be
Yeah.
something we're thinking about.
Yes.
Have you ever thought about something upcoming and you can feel your heart racing?
Yes, and I actually I talk to people about that because fear is an emotion and it's supposed to be used for danger. Like say
Hmm.
there's that cheetah hanging out in the corner waiting to maul you.
Yeah.
That's a good reason to have fear. That's a legitimate reason, but there's that emotional and chemical response is great when you need it, but a lot of us are getting really confused about fear in the sense of what we're supposed to be using it for because I want to say death is number 7 on the top fears. Fear of flying is up there. Public speaking is number 1. So nobody's died from public speaking that I know of. So usually when I talk to people, I like to have them look at fear and define it and find, you like to talk about how to release it too. You're wonderful at that. But is this legitimate fear? And if it's not, how can I change this?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The problem is when we're triggered,
Hmm.
um, our brain gets trapped in the amygdala, the fear brain. It's the
Hmm.
primitive reptilian brain.
Hmm.
So we can't really access our left brain, which is really analytical, or our
Uh-huh.
right brain, which is really creative. So it's
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
hard to think our way out of fear sometimes. It's
Sure.
like some people have described it as like being on a gerbil wheel and around and round and
Yeah.
round on the
Yeah.
same
That's like some
thing.
people's jobs.
Right, right, right. But I think what's important is once you learn how to deal with it, you
Yeah.
can really negotiate life and self awareness much better. And I use a technique called whole brain
Oh, and
body
I love this. We've
position.
done this. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so what that does is it takes us from gamma waves, which is when you and I are talking right now,
Mhm.
our brainwave frequencies are very tall and stuck
Yeah.
together. But alpha is a state
Mhm.
where you go right before you fall asleep and in your
Mhm.
dreams. But most adults don't live in alpha.
No. No, no, they don't.
But it's a very high, creative, relaxing, intuitive state of being. And
Yeah.
when you get into whole brain, you can get into the alpha
Mhm.
waves, which
Mhm.
puts the right and the left brain to work
Yeah.
so that you can resolve things with a mature mind, not a
That's
child mind.
so important because we do, we'll touch this a little bit later, but we do operate in the way that we were taught when we were little. We operate with that so much. And the other thing that I like that you said about the creative side coming out and the brain balance, I tell a lot of my clients do some physical activity because your right and your left brain, are activated during different times. And I remember this wonderful story. I was reading an article, and there was a part about Albert Einstein and how he came up with E equals MC squared when he was riding his bike. And you hear about these things all the time. And it was like, oh, I thought about this when I was in the shower. When you're moving around and being physical and, doing something physical with your body really helps you with decision making, overcoming fear, problem solving. It gives those other chemicals that are boosted up maybe from fear. a release.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And they say that, like, if a couple is having a disagreement, the best thing for them to do is go for a walk and
Together or
talk it
separate?
out. No,
It's a good question to
together.
ask.
Yeah, because they're not right in each other's face, but they're
Yeah.
side by side and they're working through it. So
That's a
they're,
great tip.
yeah, and they're
Yeah.
working through it. So they're using the right and left
Well,
brain.
that emotional response too. When you're in argument, you clench your fist, you clench your jaw, your blood pumps. Some people sweat. The tummy gets tight. So it's like there
Hmm.
is a physical and emotional
Oh,
response.
yeah.
So with
Yeah.
these kind of tips, you can catch them, you
Uh
deal
huh.
with them, you define the problem, you catch the symptoms, and then you kind of get to the root of the problem of dealing with anxiety, fear, and all those other
Right.
emotions.
Because, a 7 o'clock morning jog is great for the body.
Yeah.
But if your boss makes you mad at 3 in the afternoon, that's
Time
seven
for another
o'clock
run.
jog. Yeah, you can't actually say, I'm mad at you. I'm going to leave the office for 30
And this is where
minutes.
the marathoners develop their lives.
Exactly. But you can lock yourself in the bathroom or in your office and
Yeah.
get into whole brain, which is just crossing your ankles and your wrists, closing your eyes and putting your tongue in the roof of your mouth and just processing through it until you get to that state of
Yeah,
peace.
you said something important that I noticed that I have done when I try to prevent myself from crying. I put my tongue on the roof of my mouth, and I've noticed that. Why do people do that? I know I've caught myself doing that.
Well, there's two major energy meridians, and energy meridians are like energy highways through our body. And
Mhm.
there's one that goes front from the
Uh-huh.
top of our head,
Uh-huh.
and then it circles, and there's a second one that connects at the
Uh-huh.
tailbone and circles up. But there's a
Uh-huh.
gap
Okay.
between the two that are like right at the top of our head. And when you put your tongue there, it's
Yeah.
like you're closing that energy circuit. So you
Oh,
have more power
you know what?
and more energy.
That I needed the power because that ASPCA commercial with Sarah McLachlan, every time it comes on, I'm like pushing my tongue on the roof of my mouth. I'm like, don't cry, don't cry. And it just breaks my heart. Those little animals, I want to save them all. So I'm like, I
Yeah.
notice I use that
Yeah.
technique. And
Yeah.
I don't know where I developed that
Yeah.
technique. Would you explain that as like an automatic response? Because for me, it
Well,
is.
you're pretty intuitive,
Yeah.
so you understand things. Not everybody gets that. Like I've shown you the body posture of putting every fingertip together,
Yeah.
and how I think I'm not a great fan, but our president always sits with his fingertips together in meetings. And in body language, that's power and control.
Yeah.
So if you look around the room, the person that's doing that will
Yeah.
have this sense of power and control.
Yeah.
So I use it all the time when I speak, just
Hmm.
to ground myself and
Yeah.
give myself confidence. And it's a little, like a little tip that you can use.
The interesting thing, I remember, I always knew I was a different child. I was very intuitive and a little outspoken, we could say. I think my mother would use the word difficult. But I remember trying to find out this whole body balance when I was, probably 8 or 9. I'm like, but my left hand doesn't get to enjoy this experience either. And I'm like, that's strange. They're like, do other children think of this? And I remember probably in second grade, I was contemplating, is this right, wrong, or gray, or is it just is? So I was always an intuitive person, and this kind of ties into with the whole body experience and dealing with the fear. I didn't tell a lot of people I was intuitive, and finally later on in my life, I kind of came out of my spiritual closet when I wrote my book. So dealing with that was really interesting. Now, have you dealt with many intuitives?
Yeah, I mean, I have intuition too, and
Yeah.
I've learned to taper it because I've had people say, when you walk into the room, don't you get zapped immediately by
Yeah.
somebody? And I'm like, well,
Yeah, maybe you
I've
can
worked.
explain that.
Yeah, I've worked with shield of protection
Hmm.
so that I only take on energy when I want to, and I only give energy when I want to.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, because you can stand in line. Holidays are coming up. It's so stressful, and I've been in line before where people, I can just feel them just pulsing with
Yes.
anxiety and
Yes.
energy. And I don't know if you know this, but your heart and your energy
Yes.
goes
What, 10?
12,
Okay, I thought it was
12
10 feet.
feet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you were next to someone who's in a state of panic, that
You
panic,
feel it.
you
I think
feel
that's
it.
what I struggled with when I was growing up. I was just a little tuned into everybody's TV
Yep.
stations a little bit more than everyone else.
Yep.
And I didn't know how to deal with that. So, like, my emotions were heightened, and my siblings are like, what's the problem here? I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, because I know that dad's going to come home and feel angry. And like, I can't feel that because I feel everybody's emotions.
Around that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that kind of led me to learn how to deal with that. And that tied into my book, Willing, Creating, and Manifesting Living the Life You Desire. Because
Mhm.
I could tap into these things, but you really have to be so careful of who you surround yourself with.
Mhm.
I wrote a whole chapter on, who you hang out with is who you become. So, like,
Yeah.
if you're going
Yeah.
to hang out with drinkers, you're going to happy hour.
Yeah.
If you hang out with runners, you're going to run. I mean, I've
Yep.
experienced this my whole life. Have you run into those situations at all?
Right, and you bring up there's like a quick little analogy. If you're an A tennis player and you play tennis with a B tennis player, pretty soon you're going to be a B tennis
Yeah,
player.
I find that true.
So yeah, we usually kind of rise up or settle into wherever who surrounds us. So we have to be really in tune with our emotions
Yeah, I think so.
because they were given to us. I think they're an internal GPS. They're given
Yes.
to us to tell us how we're doing
Yeah.
and where we want to go.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't know what they want, but they certainly know what they want to feel, how they want
Feelings
to
are
feel.
so important.
And if you can figure out this situation, it makes me feel good,
Yeah.
and that's good feelings, I'll keep going towards that situation. If
Yeah.
this situation does not make me feel good,
Yeah.
okay, we're going to avoid that situation.
Yeah,
But if your feelings are all messed up because you're always in fear,
that's
then
a
you
horrible place to live.
yeah,
Yeah.
it really squelches all the other little happy, joyful, creative, because fear just overrides everybody.
Yeah, I don't know. I think everybody has dealt with fear in one way or another, and I felt it in my own personal life, and it kind of led me to my career now.
Hmm.
I was doing fine at my career; everything was great. I was achieving, but I always knew I wanted to help people even more,
Hmm.
and that's how I became a life coach because I've dealt with a lot of things. So it's like I love helping people through it, and people always came to me to help with their fears, to help with their problems, to solve it because you
Hmm.
can't operate in that constant place because it wears you down. And it does. It dulls your intuition. You don't know what to believe. And the thing that I love the most about working with people is helping them listen to themselves. Your body is giving you triggers, your emotions are giving you triggers. And you know what? You don't have to live this orderly, planned out life that everybody expects you to, or you think that they expect you to. Life doesn't go like that. Sometimes it's, that spaghetti model of the hurricane that looks like a bowl of spaghetti. Life is not linear sometimes. To get to your success and your happiness, you kind of have to take a different path and really start to listen to yourself, your
Yes.
intuition, your fears.
Yes.
Your emotions are huge. Your
Yes.
emotions are giving you cues. And if your emotions are always in fear, your body feels it. Because, like, if you're stressed out, and I mean, I'm sure you've seen clients too that are like, I'm always sick. And you think about, well, what situations are you putting yourself that are so uncomfortable, so stressful, that are
Right.
wearing on your body?
Right. And to throw some stats your way, 90% of chronic disease
Mhm.
is stress related.
I love that you said disease because dis-ease.
Ease,
Nobody
right?
ever realized that.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right. And I used to do a lot of hypnotherapy in an alternative cancer
Hmm.
facility who did complementary medicine. And I noticed a lot of times when women would give up their relationship, they'd go into remission.
That's
So
amazing.
stress can really cause the disease. And when you start listening to this is good for me, this isn't good for me, and
Yeah.
start acting upon it,
Yeah.
you really have an incredible inner ability to heal,
Yeah.
to be self-aware.
I like that because I know a lot of girls who consider boyfriends like that. Like, oh gosh, I just feel so better that I dumped this guy that's horrible for me. And like, he was really cute and he was the bad boy, but oh, why do I feel so much better?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's interesting who you get the
yeah,
energy from.
yeah, yeah. And women, classically want to fix people or help people or
Sure.
support
They're
people,
loving, yeah.
and will stay in relationships when they're not good for us.
Yeah. And you know what? The thing that I found, people know deep down. They know and they talk themselves out of it constantly for so many reasons. And those are some of the clients I get too. It's just like something doesn't feel right or I know, but it's fear. It comes
Right,
back to where we started.
right,
Fear. Maybe I can't do better. Maybe
right,
someone won't like me.
right,
Maybe I'm not
right,
lovable.
right.
And that ties into like your 6-year-old self.
Right, right. In your 6-year-old self, your subconscious mind is really a 6-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And the number one job of it is self-preservation.
Mm-hmm.
But it might have wired in there that love needs to hurt.
Yeah.
Because that came from childhood, or
Yeah.
that came from,
Is
or
that
men can't be trusted,
Yeah.
and so that's what's been programmed or imprinted into us. That's going to cause us to have that same
Yeah.
experience in adulthood.
Well, it's that was that John Cougar Mellencamp. It hurts so good. It's like I think he needs to change his lyrics because I think we believe him too much because he's just so charismatic.
Yeah, that's true.
Shouldn't
That's true.
hurt. No.
Well, people get comfortable with pain. They get
Yes.
comfortable with mistreatment. They get comfortable being disregarded.
Yeah, and you know what? I found myself doing that in my career. Like, oh, I'm comfortable, and I have other people that come to me like, I'm comfortable. I'm like, oh, then we need to light a fire because if I never pushed myself, I would look back at myself and like, oh, I wish I would have done that. I don't want to live my life
Mm-hmm.
with regret. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I had a mother who went through cancer 3 times,
Wow.
and she passed away. And after that, I had
Sorry.
a realization that I'm like, you know what though? She lived her life the way she wanted to, and I really respected that about her. Even though she was a little bit different and she didn't do things traditional, I learned so much from her just being inspired by that. I'm like, you know what? She didn't waste her time living somebody else's life. I'm like, wow,
Right.
why do I do that sometimes? Because I think we all
Right.
do that in a touch. We have to put, especially as women, we have
Yeah.
to put that facade on. Man, that's hard. If
Right.
if life was ideal, I would sit in sweatpants and like they feel so John Cougar Mellencamp, like they feel so good. Not hurt so good though. Sweatpants feel so good. But yeah, we put on that facade and it's what we learned. We have to be this way to be accepted and loved. And
Right,
yeah.
right. But really, when you like doing what you did, taking a risk, showing
Risk is
up your,
great.
yeah, and showing up your authentic self,
Yeah.
then the universe has gotten behind you, right? And things are
Yes.
just kind of manifesting that you really
Yes.
didn't have to work hard. Like things are
Yes.
coming up to you because you took off the fear blinders, and you can now,
It's
you don't have
awesome.
this tunnel vision. You can see
It's so fun,
it broadens
Susan.
your vision.
You
Yeah.
you understand. You live your life in that mode too.
Mm-hmm.
It's so fun. I wake up every day excited. I'm like, oh, because I'm doing what I want to.
Right.
And once you remove that fear, it's motivating. It's liberating. It's wonderful because everything else falls into your lap. And I wrote that whole book after I resigned from my lovely job that taught me so much. I'm like, okay, now I want to help other people do this because I had these things going on for years. Like when I would allow fear to be removed and I said, I need help. Just like even if it's to myself in the shower, I need help with this. Boom.
Yeah.
It's right there.
Yep. You just have to ask and get out of the way.
Yeah.
And
I was
it
in my own way for a little bit, I noticed.
yeah.
Yeah.
Who is it? Esther Hicks
Oh
talks
yeah.
about the universal manager that's
Yeah.
much more powerful
Yeah.
than we are. And usually if we let it, we'll create a much better scenario than we
Oh,
would have dreamed
well,
of.
where were you in my life? I'm a total control freak. You should have told me this 20 years ago. It's like we love to control things. We love to
Yeah.
see the scenario play out. And I'll tell you, being a control freak and maybe a mildly recovering one, I know what to control and not
Yeah,
to
right,
control,
right.
is that I have this vision in my mind and I love visualizing because I think it's very
Mm-hmm.
powerful. But every time I kind of let go of my, very detailed expectations, it turns out so much better
Right.
because, like you could do this, but there's something better waiting for you
Yeah,
that
right,
you don't
right,
even have to worry about. Things
right.
fall into
Ex-
my lap. It's
ex-
lovely. It's
Exactly.
great.
You're a perfect example of that because when we try to control and we get in fear and we have expectations, we kind of close off that stream of well-being that's right there.
Yeah.
And when we stop listening to our intuitive self, our higher self that is tapped into the universal wisdom,
Well, what would you
we
say happens when you stop listening to your intuitive self? What kind of,
you
do you notice it?
you get very egocentric. You take
Yeah.
things very
Hurts
personally.
more. Yeah.
Yeah, you have, you stop taking care of yourself as
That's
well.
true.
You don't take time to meditate or do what you need to do to keep yourself grounded.
Yeah.
So you lose yourself. So I think, we don't wake up one day and decide to run the marathon. We have to practice it. And you're running a
Yeah.
race tomorrow.
Yeah.
But, I think practicing meditation in whole brain or
Yeah.
practicing asking and letting go
Oh, it's
and
so wonderful.
practicing saying to yourself, what is the lesson here when things don't go your way?
You have to learn from it.
Yeah,
Yes.
and let go and see how this is really an opportunity to improve or change
Yeah.
something.
I
So,
really like that idea. And journaling that too sometimes has helped me.
yep,
I have journals from 10 years, and that's kind of where I found the pattern of like
yeah,
manifesting and like, oh,
yep,
this is how it's happening. This is how it falls in my
right,
lap. So when I get out of my way, when I ask for it, when I'm genuine. We really are meant to be our genuine selves.
Right.
And when we squish that down, like, who are we benefiting? We're hurting ourselves. We're hurting our
Exactly.
employers, our children, our families. Like, we're all different and we're supposed to be different.
Right. And
Yeah.
people always focus a little too much on what they don't want
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
versus what they want. So
What
they
did they
put
get
all this
back?
energy on what they don't want. And I'm like, that's kind of like driving with your head over your shoulder. You're gonna crash, when you're
Yeah.
looking, I don't want that, leave it back there. And you keep
You keep looking at
focusing.
it. Yeah. Yeah, it's where you put your awareness. I'm a huge
Yes.
believer in that,
Hmm.
and oh goodness, oh my. Well, you know what? The time has passed by here, and I always hate stopping this
Uh,
conversation with Susan, but we'll pick it up again. And Susan, you have anything you want to say in closing?
no, I love this just free form kind of conversation about living your authentic life.
Yeah, it's
It's
so important.
Yeah, it is. And we don't need to do it alone.
No, I
We
think,
can learn from
yeah,
each other. I learn
yes, we
from my
do.
clients all the time.
I learned from mine too. I'm like, okay, now am I practicing what I'm preaching? Like, yeah, but I could tweak this. So it's a
Uh-huh.
learning process for
Yeah,
everybody. So, Susan, I'm always so grateful to talk to
me
you. I
too.
learn when I'm with you, and I always go away feeling energized, lovely, happy, uplifted. So, thanks so much for
Good.
sharing
Well,
that
thank
today. I
you.
appreciate you so much.
Me too. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
You're
Thanks for
welcome.
listening today, everybody.